Welcome to the winners interviews of this year's Sell-Side Technology Awards. Now, CompatibL won the Best Sell-Side Newcomer Product category for the trading, pricing, and analytics section of this year's awards. And I'm joined by Alex Sokol, who is founder and chairman of CompatibL. Welcome, Alex. Good to see you again. And congratulations to you and, of course, to CompatibL for this win in this year's SST Awards.
Thank you. Thank you, Victor.
Good. Now, CompatibL's Autoencoder Market Models, or AEMMs, were responsible for delivering the win in this year's SST Awards for CompatibL. Although the availability of the models are not something that is especially new in the CompatibL platform, what I want to know from you initially, Alex, is can you explain what the models are and how they support clients' forward-looking risk scenarios and portfolio valuation calculations?
Right. Yeah. So I think it's interesting. Let me just say before I actually talk about the models themselves that I completely agree that the models are not particularly new, but I think that this is just a testament of how fast-paced the development has become in our industry. With a couple of decades of very stagnant, I would say, model development, where existing models that were developed back in the 90s or early noughts, were enhanced.
Yep.
All of a sudden, machine learning, everything new, because the models were actually, I agree completely that they're not new, but they're only actually 2 years old. So before models were in use for a decade or longer, or a couple of decades. So yeah, so the models are 2 years old. We already have and had for a while customers in production with these models, and we think that these are the right models for the current very volatile market environment. Because what these models do is that they are perfect in a situation where there are rapid changes in the markets, and we've seen these changes. With of course the COVID crisis have been a big market shock. Of course now. There are many other factors that cause market volatility. So most conventional interest rate models or other model types, because these models were developed initially for interest rates, but they're also applicable to other asset classes. So most traditional models, they describe increments. So in other words, let's say an interest rate where the yield curve has a certain level today, and you model the changes. But this approach fails when there are rapid changes or when, generally for long time horizons. And today we see both, right? So we see, first of all, that interest rates have been rising very rapidly after a long period of low rates in developed economies.
Yep.
And also with the improvements that recently the industry implemented in how limits and generally credit risk is calculated, you need to model portfolio for a lot longer horizons, right? So you'll have to model not for a year like in some of the previous approaches, but you have to model ahead for decades. And in both of these cases, when there is a rapid change or there is a long period of change, the rates or other market factors can go very far from today's values. And the power of these autoencoder-based models, or generally machine learning models, is that they learn from history to better describe where the rates can be, as opposed to modeling small increments relative to today. So we believe that this models is really a new generation approach, that will be seen by the industry as the right way to go, because they perform equally well for short horizons and for long horizons, whereas traditional models become increasingly less powerful or more rigid and less capable of describing market regimes for longer time horizons, because these machine learning models learn from history, and they are guided by history as opposed to a formula.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. Now, I gather that CompatibL has been very busy over the last 12 months. So you alluded to that in your comments to my first question. So there's been a lot of new stuff going on at CompatibL. What are some of the highlights that have recently been unveiled to the most up-to-date, most recent version of the CompatibL platform?
Right. Yeah. Well, probably, there are many things, of course, happening. There's always work on improving models, including improving, product features. But I think that what will probably interest you most is AI, and we actually have several AI initiatives, and one of them, which already have in production, is a natural language interface to CompatibL platform based on GPT-4. And of course, natural language interfaces are not new. In fact, back in the early days, people already had some shortcuts that the traders would use. For example, if they wanted to create a swap, they would use certain keywords to describe the swap instead of going to the screen and clicking buttons or selecting numbers. But large language models, such as GPT-4 from OpenAI, as well as other, there are some open source models you can run yourself, the bank can run. There are also other, companies that are trying to catch up. But really, the gold standard right now is OpenAI, and we used GPT-4 and plugin API to develop a totally new, level of natural language interaction with our platform, where previously you could select a screen and use settings to configure the screen and to use the workflow. Now, everything the system can do is can also be controlled by text, right? So in other words, you can literally say, show me the report, let's say limit report for this counterparty. Now break it down by desk, break it down by trade type. Tell me what will happen if we do a new swap for, let's say, 100 million notional, do a few parameters in natural language form. And the GPT-4 based natural language interface is just a totally different level from what it was before. In one way is that it remembers the context, right? You can say now the same report, but with a different trade. Or tell me what counterparty we should do this trade with that will optimize limits or limit consumption, optimize credit risk capital. And this is something that we believe our users will be empowered by, because we've seen a lot of cases where risk managers or traders are aware that there is a capability within the system, but don't have the time or don't have the ability to study every single screen, every single option, and sometimes they are not accessing certain functionality that will be useful to them, because it takes time to learn, it takes time to configure. You have to go and basically configure certain settings. And with this new capability of basically chat-based conversation with the system, you're able to express what you like, almost if every risk manager, every trader had an apprentice who would essentially listen to what they like to accomplish and then would configure the system for them. And the pickup has been absolutely tremendous. There's so much interest in AI right now, and it was such an obvious, improvement of how the system is used. And one thing I wanted to mention, actually, also, because it's something I think that definitely is in the back of the mind of everyone who is thinking about AI. There's been a lot of concern recently about your data getting to OpenAI, to other cloud vendors, basically used for training, becoming public. There've been a lot of discussion in the industry of how to use your data securely. And in fact, this is a valid concern, because if you talk with ChatGPT, which is not the model itself, but the web interface to it, then if you basically don't set the privacy setting, they can use your data for training. But the partnership between OpenAI and Microsoft Azure makes these models available within the bank's Azure cloud, and I'm sure other cloud providers will follow with either OpenAI or with other vendors, language model vendors as well. So the way that we set it up is that it runs in a sandbox. It's subject to the same protections as any other data running in the bank's cloud. And is subject to the same SLA. So it never goes to, it's never used for training. It's never accessed by anyone outside the bank. And the client knows that the data is secure, and they can use this natural language capability without any concern that, they ask about particular counterparty and somehow gets out in the open. So I think that's really a confidence building a step that has to be part of AI adoption in the financial industry.
Of course, as you mentioned, there's so much controversy. There's so many concerns right now around AI when there aren't the various checks and balances in place. And I think that's a really important point that you make. Alex, let's move on to, you've talked about the things that you have kind of drip fed into the most up-to-date, most recent version of the Compatible platform. Let's talk about what's on your immediate radar right now with respect to new enhancements that you're looking to roll out in the foreseeable future. How are you looking to further enhance the functionality within the Compatible platform? Can you share some of those ideas with me right now?
Of course, absolutely. In fact, we just literally, made this week a new product announcement, and this is the first time I'll be mentioning it. So again, there are many enhancements we're doing. There are, some of them are more routine than others, and some of them are perhaps even, important. But probably, given that I can probably talk about only one thing, what I wanted to talk about is a new model governance product. So, we've been able, again, AI-based, and I believe that we've been able to identify kind of a perfect intersection between quant, models, financial industry, and AI, or rather, more specifically, language model, large language model aspect of AI, where, of course, quant finance is really dealing with numbers, not speech. And AI is not yet good at math, even middle school level math or high school level math, let alone quant research. But there is one thing in quant finance that's really language based, and I believe that our product addresses this sweet spot where we can use this incredible power of language models for something to advance something that's related to quant finance, and this is model governance. So in a bank, when models evolve, right? So and this applies both to vendor models, where the vendor has to work with the bank's regulators and auditors to assure that the models are correct, as well as internal models. The models have to be documented, and usually it's a 200-page. Sometimes I've seen 500-page document describing a model, right? And it's not one document for the entire bank. It's each model has to be hundreds of pages, charts, descriptions, describing in great detail how the model works. And this is something very critical to the reliable, functioning of the financial industry. These are risk models, these evaluation models. So they go into financial reporting, they go into risk reporting for the regulators. So it's very critical that this model documentation is correct. And very often things fall through the cracks. Basically, engineers are not always the best, in keeping documentation up to date. So we have a product where we use OpenAI Da Vinci model, which is designed for comprehension and generation of source code to analyze code changes, along with GPT-4 model, which is optimized for text or speech, to analyze version control commit logs, to analyze model release notes and analyze model document. And it can be used to generate or update model documentation or release notes for, of course, final approval and review by humans. But it is able to look at source code changes, look at version control commits, and suggest changes to model documentation, suggest release notes that will summarize what was done, as well as it can be used as for validation. For example, we did a case study with one of our early, with clients who was the early adopter of this, and they have been able, for example, somewhere among thousands and thousands of commit messages, it was said like, remove certain currency from calibration, right, or change the numerical method. And if release notes did not mention that numerical method was updated, or that a certain currency was, no longer part of the calibration set when the model was optimized. This is something regulators absolutely have to know, and this is something that very easy to miss because it's among a very, very large body of these commits. And we haven't been able to identify this both from the commits, where there is so the engineer in the version control system flagged this change, but did not get to the release notes, as well as when it was not even in the commit log, but it was on the source code change. So we've been able to use OpenAI both for source review and for document review. And in both cases, identify gaps or flag errors, flag omissions, as well as suggest changes where it will say, here, like a few more bullet points that summarize what was changed. And I have to say that, our company was an early adopter of AI. Of course, we already have our natural language interface, as our initial product. But I was, completely surprised by how well it worked. This is something it was able to understand nuance. That I think that is, at the level that really, is totally unexpected. Things like something that was even to a human perhaps would take a moment to understand exactly what this refers to, and it was able to understand this nuanced description and describe it in the release notes on model documentation correctly. Of course, I'm not suggesting that we're at the point where we can completely automate it. Humans still have to review it. But we found that it has basically the 2 to 3-fold productivity enhancement level for humans who work on this documentation. Makes the job much easier.
Mm-hmm. Good. Certainly interesting point to finish our conversation on, Alex. And I look forward to keeping abreast with all the new developments that are coming out of CompatibL. It seems almost on a monthly basis now. It's a very productive time for everybody at the company. That just leads me to congratulate you again for this win in this year's Sell-Side Technology Awards. Congratulations to you, and of course to all the engineers and the people behind the scenes at CompatibL for this win.
Thank you, Victor. It's an honor. Thank you.